What happens when a country music superstar walks onto a daytime talk show and triggers the most explosive on-air meltdown in television history? The kind of clash that ends with one of the most recognizable voices in daytime TV walking off her own show. This is not a publicity stunt. This is not scripted drama. This is what happened when Luke Bryan sat down with Joy Behar on The View, and everything went completely off the rails. Before we get into this absolute chaos, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me whose side you are on in this situation. Because trust me, you are going to have an opinion by the end of this video. The studio audience was buzzing with excitement as Luke Bryan walked out onto the set. He had just released his latest album and was making the rounds on all the major talk shows. The View was supposed to be a lighthearted stop, a chance to chat about music. Maybe share some stories from the road, plug the new record standard stuff. What nobody expected was that within minutes, this interview would become one of the most talked about moments in the show's history. Joy Behar started things off friendly enough. She smiled at Luke as he settled into his chair. The audience still clapping. "Luke Bryan, welcome to The View," she said warmly. "Great to have you here." "Thanks for having me, Joy," Luke replied, flashing that signature smile. "Always good to be here in New York." "So, you've got a new album out," Joy continued, glancing down at her notes. "Lots of songs about trucks, beer, small-town life, the usual country music themes." There was something in the way she said it, a slight edge. Luke caught it, but kept his smile. "Well, I like to write about what I know. What a lot of people know. Real life, real experiences." Joy nodded, but her expression had shifted slightly. "Real life. Interesting, because I was listening to some of your songs, and I have to ask, do you ever write about anything else? Anything more? I don't know. Substantial." The other hosts exchanged quick glances. The audience went quiet. Luke's smile faded just a bit. "Substantial," he repeated. "What do you mean by that?" "I mean," Joy said, leaning forward, "country music used to be about storytelling, right? Real issues, heartbreak, struggle, working-class problems. Now it seems like it's just, hey, let's get drunk in a field. Is that really connecting with people?" Luke shifted in his seat. His jaw tightened. "With all due respect, Joy, I think you might be simplifying things a bit. My songs connect with millions of people. They relate to what I'm singing about." "Do they relate, or are you just telling them what they want to hear?" Joy shot back. "I mean, how many songs can you write about the same pickup truck?" Nervous laughter rippled through the audience. The other hosts looked uncomfortable. One of them tried to jump in. "Joy, maybe we should," but Joy was not backing down. "I'm just saying, Luke, you're a talented guy. You've got a platform. You could be using your music to say something meaningful. Instead, it's all party anthems and nostalgia for some mythical version of rural K that doesn't even exist anymore." Luke's expression hardened. He sat up straighter. "Mythical? You think the lives of the people who listen to my music are mythical? These are real people. Joy, they work hard. They love their families. They deserve to have music that celebrates their lives without being talked down to." "I'm not talking down to anyone," Joy replied, her voice rising slightly. "I'm questioning whether you're actually serving your audience or just feeding them the same tired stereotypes." "Stereotypes?" Luke's voice was getting louder now, too. "You want to talk about stereotypes? You're sitting here stereotyping an entire genre of music and everyone who listens to it. You think because someone likes a song about Friday nights and dirt roads, they're somehow less intelligent, less worthy of respect?" The energy in the studio had completely changed. The producers were signaling frantically from off-camera. The other hosts were frozen, unsure whether to intervene. Joy's face was flushed. "That is not what I said." That is exactly what you're saying, Luke countered. You're doing the thing that people in your world always do. You dismiss an entire culture because you don't understand it. You don't relate to it, so it must be stupid, right? My world? Joy's voice was sharp. Now what is that supposed to mean? The world where you sit in a studio in Manhattan and judge people you've never met, Luke said, his southern accent getting thicker as he got more heated. The world where you think you know what's best for everyone. And if they don't agree with you, they're just dumb hicks who don't know any better. The audience gasped. One of the other hosts put her hand up. Okay, let's take a breath here, but Joy was already responding. That is completely unfair. Luke, I have never called anyone a dumb hick. You didn't have to, Luke said. It's in every word you're saying. Every time you talk about country music like it's some joke. Every time you question whether the people who love it are being manipulated instead of just enjoying music that speaks to them. Joy stood up abruptly, her chair scraping back. Asterisk, you know what? I do not have to sit here and be lectured about elitism by someone who makes millions singing about beer cans. Luke stood up too. And I do not have to sit here and let you insult me, my music, and everyone who listens to it just because you think you are smarter than all of us. The studio went dead silent. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Joy and Luke were both standing now, facing each other across the table. The other hosts looked like they wanted to disappear into their chairs. The audience did not know whether to applaud, gasp, or stay silent. Most chose silence. One of the producers was making cutting motions with her hands, trying to signal for a commercial break, but nobody on camera was paying attention. This had gone beyond a normal interview disagreement. This was personal now. Joy took a breath, trying to compose herself, but her voice was still sharp. Luke, I think you're being incredibly defensive about legitimate criticism. Luke let out a short, bitter laugh. That was not criticism. Joy criticism would be saying, if you don't like a particular song, or you think I could do better on a certain album. What you did was dismiss an entire genre and everyone connected to it. That's not criticism. That's contempt. I do not have contempt for country music, Joy insisted, but her tone suggested otherwise. I grew up listening to Johnny Cash, Dolly Parton, Willie Nelson. That was country music. Real storytelling. What you do is it's manufactured. It's focus grouped. It's designed to sell trucks and beer. Luke's eyes narrowed. You just named 3 legends and then implied that nobody since them has done anything worthwhile. Do you hear yourself? You're romanticizing the past and using it as a weapon against the present. And yeah, companies want to use my songs in commercials because people love them. That's not a bad thing. That means I'm connecting with an audience you're pandering to. Joy shot back. There it is again, Luke said, pointing at her. Pandering like the people who listen to my music are too stupid to know what they actually like. Like they need you to tell them they're being manipulated. That is so condescending, Joy. One of the other hosts, trying desperately to salvage the situation, jumped in. Maybe we can talk about the positive impact of country music. Luke, you do a lot of charity work, right? But Joy was not ready to move on. I'm not being condescending. I'm being honest. Country music has become this echo chamber where you just tell people what they want to hear. You glorify drinking. You glorify this rural lifestyle that is disappearing. And you act like progress is the enemy. Luke's face reddened. Progress. You think progress means looking down on people. You think progress means telling farmers and factory workers and small-town Americans that their way of life is not worth celebrating. That their values are backwards. I never said that, Joy protested. You're saying it right now. Luke fired back. You just said rural life is disappearing? Like that's a good thing. Like those communities don't matter. Like those people don't matter. Joy threw her hands up. You're putting words in my mouth. I'm listening to the words coming out of your mouth, Luke said, his voice rising. You sat there and called my music manufactured. You said it's not substantial. You questioned whether I'm actually serving my audience. How am I supposed to take that? As an opportunity for self-reflection, Joy snapped. Asterisk, the audience gasped again. Even the other hosts looked shocked. That was a bridge too far, and everyone knew it. Luke stared at her for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, but more intense. You know what the real problem is here, Joy? It's not my music. It's not country music. It's that you cannot stand the fact that there are millions of people out there who don't think like you, who don't share your values, who don't want to be lectured by someone on television about how they should live their lives. And instead of respecting that, instead of trying to understand that, you mock it. You dismiss it. You act like they're the problem. Joy's face was bright red. Now that is not fair. Fair? Luke laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about fair? You invited me on this show? I came here in good faith to talk about my music, to connect with your audience, and you ambushed me. You used this platform to attack not just me, but everyone who listens to country music. Now you're upset that I'm pushing back. I want to finish this. Luke, if you cannot handle someone questioning your artistic choices, maybe you are in the wrong business. Questioning my artistic choices. Luke's voice was incredulous. You didn't question anything. You made judgments. You made assumptions. You insulted millions of people. And now you're acting like I'm the problem for calling you out on it. Joy crossed her arms. I'm sorry that you feel insulted, but I stand by what I said. Country music has become a parody of itself, and artists like you are profiting off it. The words hung in the air like a bomb. Luke stared at her, shaking his head slowly. Wow. Okay, you know what, Joy? I came here thinking this would be a fun conversation. I've done this show before. I've always enjoyed it. But clearly something has changed. Or maybe this is who you've always been on. I just didn't see it before. What is that supposed to mean? Joy demanded. It means you're so caught up in your own bubble that you can't see past your own biases, Luke said. You think you're enlightened. You think you're sophisticated. But really, you're just close-minded. You've decided that people who like country music are beneath you. And nothing I say is going to change that. I never said anyone was beneath me, Joy protested. But her voice lacked conviction now. You didn't have to, Luke replied. It's in everything you've said this entire interview. Every question, every comment, every dismissive little remark about trucks and beer. You look down on these people, Joy. You look down on me. And honestly, that says a lot more about you than it does about country music. One of the producers was now on the floor, frantically signaling. The director was shouting through everyone's earpiece. But the train had already left the station. Joy's hands were shaking slightly. Whether from anger or something else, it was hard to tell. You know what, Luke? Maybe you're right. Maybe I don't understand your music. Maybe I don't understand the people who listen to it. But at least I'm willing to ask questions. At least I'm willing to challenge the status quo. Challenge the status quo. Luke repeated, disbelief dripping from his voice. You're not challenging anything. You're reinforcing every stereotype about coastal elites who think they're better than everyone else. You're proving every point people make about media bubbles and cultural disconnect. Joy's face flickered through anger, indignation, her tanned, then something else. Something close to realization. But it vanished quickly, replaced by defensive fury. How dare you? She said, her voice low and dangerous. How dare you come on this show and lecture me about cultural disconnect? I've been doing this for decades. I've interviewed thousands of people. I've fought for progressive causes when it wasn't popular. And you, someone who sings about tailgates for a living, you think you can tell me I'm the one in a bubble?" Luke didn't flinch. "Yeah, Joy, I do. Because right now, in this moment, you're proving exactly what I'm talking about. You just dismissed my entire career. My entire life as singing about tailgates. You reduced everything I do to a punchline because you can't accept that maybe you don't have all the answers." "I never claimed to have all the answers," Joy said, her voice shaking now. "But you act like you do," Luke countered. "You act like anyone who doesn't see the world the way you see it is wrong, misguided, needs to be educated. And when someone like me pushes back, you take it as a personal attack." One of the other hosts, her voice nearly pleading, tried again. "Can we please just take a commercial break?" Joy wasn't listening. She was staring at Luke, chest rising and falling with quick, angry breaths. "You don't know anything about me," she said. "You don't know what I stand for. You don't know what I've been through." "You're right," Luke said, his voice softer now, but still firm. "I don't know your story, just like you don't know mine. Just like you don't know the stories of the people who listen to my music. The difference is, I'm not pretending to know. I'm not sitting here judging you for where you come from or what you believe. I'm just asking for the same respect." Joy opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. She looked around the set, the other hosts, the cameras, the audience. Her eyes glistened now, and it wasn't clear whether it was anger, tears, or both. The silence stretched, heavy and uncomfortable. Finally, Joy spoke, her voice tight. "You know what? I don't need this. I don't need to sit here and be attacked on my own show." "Tact?" Luke looked genuinely confused. "Joy, I'm just responding to what you said to me. You called me close-minded," Joy shot back. "You said I look down on people. You accused me of living in a bubble on national television on my show. You called my music manufactured," Luke fired back. "You said I was pandering. You questioned whether anything I do is substantial. How is that different?" "It's different because I'm talking about your art," Joy snapped. "You're attacking me personally." Luke paused, then nodded slowly. "No, Joy. I'm responding to how you see people. And if that feels personal, maybe that's something worth sitting with." Joy stared at him for a long beat. Then she reached up, unclipped her microphone, and dropped it onto the table. The sound echoed through the studio. "I'm done," she said. "We're done." She stood, turned, and walked off the set as the cameras scrambled to follow. The audience sat frozen in stunned silence. Luke remained standing for a moment, then quietly said, "I came here with respect." I wish it had gone both ways. The producers finally cut to commercial, and by the time the screen went black, one thing was clear. This wasn't just a viral moment, it was a cultural fault line. Laid bare on live television. Asterisk your comments were personal, Luke insisted. When you dismiss someone's music, when you question their integrity, when you suggest that their audience is being manipulated, that is personal. You made it personal first. Joy shook her head, and something in her expression changed. It was like a wall had come down or maybe gone up. It was hard to tell. When she spoke again, her voice was eerily calm. "I have been on this show for years. I have had disagreements with guests before heated ones, but I have never, ever felt so disrespected in my own chair." "Joy," one of the other hosts said softly, reaching toward her. But Joy pulled away. She looked directly at Luke, her jaw set. "You came on this show with a chip on your shoulder. You were looking for a fight." "I was not looking for anything except a normal interview," Luke said, his voice tired now. "You started this, Joy. You know you did. I started this by asking legitimate questions about your music." Joy shot back. You turned it into some culture war debate. You turned it into that, Luke said, shaking his head. The second you started talking about mythical versions of America, stereotypes and pandering, that was you, not me. Joy stared at him for a long moment. Then she reached up and took off her microphone. The sharp sound of the clip, releasing, echoed through the silent studio. Everyone froze. "What are you doing?" one of the hosts asked, alarm clear in her voice. Joy didn't answer. She carefully placed the microphone on the table in front of her. Then she looked at Luke one more time. "I hope you're happy," she said quietly. "Happy." Luke looked genuinely distressed now. "Joy, I didn't want this." "Yes, you did," Joy said. "You wanted to make me the villain? You wanted to make this about coastal elites and cultural bubbles and all the talking points that play so well with your base. Well, congratulations. You've got your moment." "That's not what this was," Luke protested. But Joy was already moving. She stepped back from the table. The other hosts were half standing now, reaching for her, saying her name, but she ignored them. She looked out at the audience, many of whom had their hands over their mouths in shock. Then she looked directly into the main camera. "I have given years to this show," she said, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it. "I have always tried to ask the tough questions, to challenge people, to not just accept easy answers. And if that makes me an elitist, if that makes me close-minded, if that means I no longer deserve respect, then maybe this isn't where I belong anymore." "Joy, please," another host said, her voice breaking. "Don't do this." Joy looked at her colleagues, and for just a second, her composure cracked. Her eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back. "I'm sorry," she said softly, "but I can't do this right now." And then she walked off the set. The studio erupted. The audience gasped and began talking all at once. The other hosts stared at each other in shock and panic. Producers ran around frantically. Luke Bryan stood frozen, his hands hanging at his sides. One of the hosts turned to him, her face pale. "Luke, we need to go to commercial." But Luke wasn't looking at her. He was staring at the spot where Joy had been standing, like he had just witnessed a car crash. "I didn't." He stopped himself. "I didn't mean for that to happen." The cameras were still rolling. The director was shouting for them to cut, but for a few more seconds. Everything just hung there in a terrible, awkward silence. Luke ran a hand through his hair, looking lost. The remaining hosts scrambled for words, trying to salvage something, anything, but there was nothing to salvage. The damage was done. Finally, mercifully. They cut to commercial, but everyone watching knew what they had just witnessed wasn't something that could be fixed with a break.